In this video, we will go over how to do borehole desurveys in our spatial products. In all our spatial products, you are able to do on-the-fly borehole desurveys. Your borehole data can be loaded from a SQL, Oracle, or other kind of database, or be brought in from CSV files, which is what I will be using in this example. As you can see here on my scene, I have my borehole collars showing. This was brought in as a CSV text file, which you can see here in the layer control. I simply dragged and dropped it on the scene, and it plotted it in space for me. Now, to view its data associated with it, I can right-click on the layer and go to View Data. And in this data grid, I can see all the associated attribute information. I can filter here on certain things I want to see. For example, if I only want to see RC hole type, I can filter on that. And as I apply this filter, it is also applied in my scene for me. I can clear it, and the rest of the points are put back again. I can also zoom to specific rows of data here. For example, if I want to look at this borehole over here, I can select it and then say zoom, and in my scene it zooms me to that borehole. I will close this for now. Now I would like to change the appearance of these borehole collars before we get into our borehole desurveying. So to do that, we will right click on collars and go to properties, go to the styling tab, and now instead of using the default styling that it gives me here, I'm going to go to the images and icons tab to use an image to represent my points here actually. Now in this case, I'm going to be using a wingdings character, which I'm just going to paste in. This kind of character can be browsed to over here and chosen for you. Now I will first say apply to see how this looks, and I like the appearance of that on my scene, so I'll take that. Next I'm going to put on some text labels for these borehole collars so I can easily identify them. I'll go to the text tab, choose the text column to use as a label, which in this case will be hole name, and then I'm going to say apply to see how that looks, and I like that, and I will take that and now say OK. Now what we can do is check if these borehole collars have been geolocated correctly by turning on a Google satellite background, which is what I'll do here. And it brings up a background to see exactly where these boreholes are located in space, and in this case I see they are correctly located, and I'm happy. So I'll turn off my Google Maps background for now. And now we can begin bringing our survey data in to do our borehole desurvey. Now as you can see here, all my borehole data for the desurveying is as CSV text files, which I will simply drag and drop in. So for example here, I'm going to bring in the surveys CSV file, click and drag and drop. As I drop it on the scene, it prompts me to choose the projection for this data, and in this case I'm going to just use the scene projection as that is the correct projection for this data. So I'll click use scene projection. Then it prompts me to set the various properties of the layer that's going to be created for it now. And this is where we're actually going to specify our parameters for the borehole desurvey. So to do that, we go to the data tab here, and then we click on geometry extraction. This will decide exactly how this data will be extracted in the scene for us. Now, by geometry creation, we can drop down and see there are many different methods of geometry extractions that can be done. And in this case, the one that applies is the borehole desurvey method. We will click that. And here we go. This is the borehole desurvey dialog. And first, what we're going to choose is the ID column for the borehole desurvey. So that is going to be the hole name. Then we choose the depth column in the survey data, and that is depth here in this case. Then we choose the dip column, which in this case is going to be inclination. Then we can specify the dip value for horizontal here and whether it increases up. And then we choose the direction column, which in this case is going to be the azimuth. And then you can specify direction value for eastwards and whether it goes clockwise or not. And then we can choose the angular units, degrees or radians. I will leave all these as their default. Next we'll choose the collar layer, which is the layer that the survey data links to, which is going to be our colors layer that we were looking at. So that is here, colors. Then we will choose the ID column within the color layer that this survey data is going to link on to this color layer. And that is also called hole name. And we have now specified everything we need for our on-the-fly borehole desurvey. So I can say OK. And then I can say OK on the layer properties dialog as well. And our boreholes have been extracted for us. Now I am viewing them from a top view, so I will rotate them to see them better. I will choose down here one of the snap tools, object snap, so I can snap to one of the boreholes to rotate. So there we go. And then I'll click Control, click and drag to rotate. And there we go. We can see our boreholes and that they've been extracted for us exactly as they were surveyed in real life. Now, what I've also brought in here is some DXF files, which represents a topography surface that is coordinated with this borehole data, which I can put on also to see how that looks. So I'll put that on here, and there we go. There is the surface coordinated with these boreholes. Now the next thing we're going to bring in is the lithology data of the borehole desurvey, and we'll show you how to extract that. You can see here I have the lithology data as a CSV text file as well. I'll simply click, drag, drop it on the scene, choose its projection, which will be the scene projection again. And then now we will go to the data tab to specify its geometry extraction. In this case, the geometry extraction method we're going to use is a segment extraction. First thing we will choose is the ID column in this data, and that is the hole name. Then the depth column for these segments of lithology. So the depth column here is going to be depth from, and then the depth to column is 2. Then we'll choose the link layer, which in this case, the layer that this lithology data will link to is the survey layer that we brought in and extracted. So I'll choose that. And then we'll choose the ID column in that survey layer, which is hole name. And we've specified everything we need for our segment extraction, so we can say OK, and say OK on the layer properties dialog. And there we go, our lithology has been extracted for us. I'll just turn off the survey extractions here, so we can just see the lithology. Now to make sense of this lithology data we have just displayed, we can actually apply a theme to it to see the various attributes of it. So to do that, we will right click on the lithology layer and go to properties. Then we'll go to the thematics tab and click new theme to create a new theme, which I will call lith in this case. Then we can go to the colors tab to create a color theme. By color column, we will drop down and choose the column in our data that we want to theme on, and in this case it's lith code. Then we will choose unique colors, and some colors are automatically populated for you for each of the lithology segments down your borehole. You can of course change these colors if you want by clicking on them and choosing different colors, or even opening the color palette and dragging in a palette, or choosing specific colors from the palette to add to your theme. In this case, I want to drag in this palette over here, so I'll click and drop it on. And then I can say OK, and my theme has been applied. Each lithology segment of my borehole is colored, and here is the legend for it in the layer control. And now I can tick off specific sections of this borehole and analyze specific lithologies that I want to look at. If I want to isolate a specific section, I can right click and say isolate, and then zoom fit and look at this section. If I want to put them all back on, I can right click and say all on. Now what would also be nice to do is put some text labels down this borehole for each lithology segment, so I can more clearly see on the scene exactly which segment is which. So to do that, we can right click again on the lithology layer and go to properties. Then we will go to the text tab, and then by text column we will drop down and choose the column in the data we want to create text labels for, which will also be lith code in this case. Then we'll go to the effects tab to set some properties of the text, go to font and color, and I will choose the color for the text to be white because I have a black background. I will make the text a bit bigger, and then I'll come back to the basic tab over here to set some last few things. Display from scale will set that I won't see the text labels all the time, only when I'm zoomed in to a certain extent. This will prevent my scene from getting cluttered up with text labels. So I will set a certain display from scale here, from 0 and then to 700 in this case. Now lastly, what I will set is that these text labels will go along the boreholes themselves and not horizontally but vertically along each segment. And to do that, I can tick on align along object. And now I'm done, I will say OK. As I zoom into the correct zoom extent that I set, I can now see labels for each segment of the borehole. As I go out of the zoom extent I set, I can no longer see those labels. Now this borehole desurvey is done on the fly. This means that if the source data that is being referenced is updated, it will automatically update and read desurvey for you. All you have to do is right click on the layer, go to properties, and say reload, and it will refresh with the updated data. If the source data is changed while the program is closed, when you open the program again, the data will automatically reload and you won't have to do the step of right clicking and saying reload. And that is all for this demonstration. Thank you very much.